Hello and welcome. We are studying the Psalms to learn how to pray. Psalms 13 is one of the best models of how to pray when we have pressing issues. It is like a small gold mine of instruction in how to pray when burdened or concerned.
The book of Hebrews encourages us to approach the throne of grace with boldness so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. It's Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. The speaker in Psalm 13 models how we can approach God with boldness. So look at verses 1 and 2. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Psalm 13 gives us permission to complain to God in a very bold and direct manner. 4 times in 2 verses, the speaker asks, how long? The speaker expressed pain and sorrow over what appeared to be the absence of God in a serious time of need. Yes, enemies seemed to assault the speaker, but the greatest problem was God's seeming distance. My Hebrew professor in seminary was a gentle, good-humored, and deeply spiritual man. He related to a small group of us the story of his experience with God and the problem of his wife's cancer. He said, "We first prayed for her to be healed, and she wasn't. When her pain was so acute, we prayed for God to take her home, and he didn't." The anguish of my professor has been told to me in various ways over 50 years. Godly people who have prayed fervently but have felt the apparent absence of God know the pain of the speakers, how long, in verse 13.
The complaint of the opening verses leads to a bold appeal for help. Consider and answer me, O Lord, my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in the sleep of death. And my enemy will say, I have prevailed. My foes will rejoice because I am shaken. Psalm 13, 3 and 4. When some people experience difficulties, they say in effect, I tried God and he didn't help. At that point in their lives, they make a choice to walk away from God, many never to return. Psalm 13 presents an alternative to simply walking away from God. It gives us permission to be honest and to tell God exactly what we think. The speaker provides us words to express our needs for God's help. If he doesn't help, it will be lights out or death. If God doesn't help, the enemies of God can rejoice and claim that there is no help for him in God, Psalms 3:2. However, if God considers and answers this prayer, he will show the enemy God's power and glory. We don't know what happened between verse 4 and 5, but clearly God changed the circumstances for the speaker. And he says, But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, because he has dealt bountifully with me. Psalm 13, 5 and 6.
Well, if we return to the story of my Hebrew professor, God did not heal his wife. However, God drew him into a place of trust. Even though he grieved the loss of his life for many years, he was able to trust God's love, and it's always constant and reliable. He rejoiced in the goodness of God, even though he had lost the love of his life. So as you use this psalm in your prayer time, here are 2 thoughts that may help. The prayers that we read in the Bible give us permission to complain to God. Many of the Psalms are very honest in their expression of disappointment and pain at God's seeming absence during times of difficulty. Even when you're complaining to God, you still have the door open to him. If you walk away from God in disappointment and anger, you will have closed the door to his presence. It's much easier for God to help you when you're still open to him. One of my favorite authors lost his faith as a child. When his father died, he decided that there was no God. He determined to live under his own power and abilities. Now, the program of AA brought him back to faith after spending nearly 2 decades away from God. What would have happened if instead he had brought his anger to God and kept it until God answered? Well, I believe his faith would have remained, and it wouldn't have taken him 20 years to reconnect with God. Second thing I'd like you to note is it's okay to grieve and be angry when trouble comes to your life. The speaker in this psalm trusted in God's steadfast love and showed it by complaining to him. No doubt, when we express anger and disappointment to God, we are demonstrating our faith. So as God works in our lives, we will be able to move from complaint to praise. It often doesn't happen on our time schedule, but as we stay with God, He'll be able to take us to that place of praise once again.
Maywood Baptist Church has a prayer team who will pray for you. Please email Bob and me at bsprad49@gmail.com or private message Bob on Facebook. We will pray for you and pass on your requests to the prayer team.
Thank you all so much for being with us today. We pray that God blesses you lots, and we'll see you tomorrow.